Hello. Hi, Sarita.
Hello.
Hello. We are so grateful to have you today with us in Wonder Woman Festival Forum. And so glad that you accepted our invite for this interview and for the festival to facilitate one of the sessions for universe, for discovering the universe. Women means Ma Sarita does not need much introduction in the Tantra world. She has been with for 26 years with Osho in Oregon 1 and Oregon 2. She has journeyed a long way in spirituality, meditation, Tantra. She has, I would call her as a mother of Tantra in today's time, with so much wisdom, with so much experience and vastness in her knowledge and in her learnings, and the way she also gives with such a compassionate way. Like she's a teacher, guide, friend for me, and I'm so grateful for all she has contributed in my growth in my life. And I'm very happy to have her. And I let her speak to say something more about your work and your learning, Sarita, please.
Okay, very nice, Shrishti, that you've organized this amazing festival with so many passionate women teachers. It's just incredible. And basically, I think every woman has the potential to wake up, rise up, and expand into our goddess nature for the benefit of ourselves, our families, our communities, and the whole world. So this is my basic premise. And of course, I also work with men. So I love to help evolve men and women. But I do have one branch of my work, which is only for women. It's called Goddess Essence. And I also offer Goddess Essence teacher training. And I just do one small correction. When you were introducing me, you said I was present in Oregon 1 and 2. I think you meant Pune 1 and 2.
Yeah,
as
Pune
well
1 and 2, yes.
as well as Oregon. So
Yeah.
actually, I came to Osho in 1973. That was before he went to Pune. So he was living in an apartment in Mumbai. And by the grace of God, I found myself in his presence. And from that moment, which was early in 1973, then I stayed in his community for 26 years. And I was with him at the time when he left his body also. So he left his body in 1990. So from 73 to 90, I was in his presence.
Wonderful. Wow. And you were the personal cleaner for Osho.
Yes, I used to clean Osho's house and also his bedroom.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yes, so this was a great blessing, tremendous blessing for me.
You were initiated in Tantra in Osho presence and in the Pune too. You started the journey.
No, it started from the moment I came to Osho, because the first time I met Osho, it was in Woodlands, in the apartment he was staying in Woodlands in Mumbai. And a friend that I had just met, an acquaintance, I could say, who was his name Krishna Prem, he said, I'm going to meet someone tonight that I think you would like to meet. So would you like to come? And I said, yes, I was always up for an adventure. And he took me to Osho's apartment. And I didn't know anything about Osho. There was about 30 people sitting there in orange robes. All the walls were lined with books. And then Osho floated into the room wearing white. He sat in a chair and he started giving discourse on the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. And this stunned me. This discourse was just phenomenal. And I still remember the sutra. The sutra was, while engaged in sexual union, stay attentive on the fire in the beginning, and so continuing, avoid the embers in the end.
Wow.
And this sutra and Osho's 1.5 hour discourse on it, it just completely blew me away. And that really set me on the Tantra path. And as a follow-up to that, once I was living in Mumbai and receiving regular guidance from Osho, he was offering me different meditations to practice and then come back and see him. Then he would either tell me to continue or he would give me new meditation. And those meditations he was giving me were tantric meditations, even though at the time I didn't know that. But later on, I realized, oh my God, he was just putting me on the Tantra path straight away.
So it feels like from your conversations, it was meant to be. Your first
Yes.
introduction with him was on Tantra and Vigyan Bhairav Tantra Sutra.
Yeah.
As you already mentioned about Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, can you talk a bit more for the women who might not know about it? And it comprises of 112 sutras, and it's a very beautiful compilation of the meditations and sutras and how it was translated by Osho into the
Yes.
descriptions
So,
of it.
it's an extremely rare scripture in the world of spirituality and scriptures, because it is literally a conversation between Lord Shiva and his consort Parvati. It's a love dialogue. And there are some statues in India showing the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra being offered by Shiva. And Parvati is sitting in his lap, looking at him adoringly. She's asking him questions about life, love, and spirituality, and he's answering. Now, rather than giving her some dogma, some belief, he's offering her methods. So she asks a question, then he offers her a method of meditation. So by practicing the method, she will awaken her own innate intelligence and discover truth in her own right, not dependent on her beloved, not dependent on anybody else. That truth will come from within as she practices the method. And there are 112 methods, and those methods cover the whole spectrum of human life experience. So they are absolutely magical, and Osho gave discourses on each of those 112 methods. And his discourses are in the book called Book of Secrets. And if I were cast away on some desert island and I had only one book, that would be the one, because it has enough richness for a whole lifetime of Tantra practice. It is absolutely amazing. And of course, as you know, I teach those 112 methods in the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra retreat that happens in Dharamsala, India every year.
Correct. And it was a retreat when I met my beloved, with whom now I have a baby. So it's a beautiful, beautiful retreat and highly recommended. 9 days, full intense journey into your own self and into Tantra. I highly recommend. Thank you. Sarita, as you were saying just now in your talks, that Parvati, just by practicing all these sutras given by Shiva, was awakened. So for me, I feel like whether we are designing this festival, we are also giving the practices to women, on which is in itself could be enough to shake something in them, to rebirth, to retune. So what do you have to say? What is the path of woman awakening or to enlightenment or to know her eternal love and freedom? What is her path?
This is a very important question, actually, because there's so much misconception about woman's path in terms of spirituality, because many of the paths in spirituality have been given by men and are literally designed by men for men. For example, Buddha and Mahavira, both two great masters from India, they both said that if a woman wants to get enlightened, she has to be reborn as a man. So when I heard this the first time, I was so outraged. This was when I was in my early 20s. I heard about it and I freaked out, like, because I was on the path of enlightenment, and how dare these men interfere with my enlightenment, tell me I have to come back as a man, fuck off. So I really meditated very deeply over the whole subject. And I came to what I think is a very important understanding that those paths of Buddha and Mahavira are both very masculine oriented paths. So it's true, if a woman wants to follow those paths, she will have to masculinize herself. She has to literally become like a man. And I think you must have noticed, if you see women following these paths, they don't look very feminine. They look a bit dried up.
Yeah.
Whereas women who are in their femininity, they're very juicy, they're very flowing. And so as I went deeper on the path of spirituality, I found out that women have our own unique way of approaching spirituality, which is pleasure oriented, which is sensuality oriented, and where we celebrate love and devotion. And we can understand this if we start looking very deeply into woman's sexuality, because the woman is designed by nature to need to bond with her man and also with her child. And I'm sure you've been experiencing that as you just had a baby and you're raising the child and you're with your man. So it's a very vulnerable time. And nature has programmed us to need to get very attached to our man and to our child through pleasure, through joy. So, for example, if the man ejaculates in the woman and there is fluid bonding, meaning you're not using a condom, the ejaculate fluid is literally addictive to the woman. It's a drug. And she will crave to be with this man again and again, like a drug. One ejaculation, that drug lasts for 1 month. So she will feel completely bonded to him for 1 month. Not only that, over a period of a few days, if she's with this man on several occasions, her yoni will literally change its size, shape, and way of being to adapt around that man's lingam. And I'm sure many women watching this would have experienced that, maybe without realizing it. So your yoni will adapt, and with the yoni adapting and with that addictive quality in the sperm, you will simultaneously shift psychologically and emotionally to form yourself around this man's perceptions and ways of approaching life. So you literally become in some way deeply connected and bonded to him.
Right.
And nature wants that to happen. So I hear in today's world where polyamory is very common, a lot of women beating themselves up. Oh, I got attached and it's not good because I should be open, all of this. But this is men's speak. Please tune into your own body, trust your own body, and realize how you are designed and honor that. And the woman's spirituality is mirroring that because, for example, we're giving nourishment from our breast to the baby. And that also creates a bonding through pleasure because we have nerves from the nipples that go directly to the clitoris. So this is the breastfeeding then becomes a pleasurable experience and we want to repeat it. And nature wants that to happen. And it also helps to create what is called the Tantric Circle between the mother and child. So there's a pleasurable energy circle that's created where the child also wants to bond with the mother. Now, this gives rise to a particular form of spirituality because we are designed by nature to be bonded to our child or to our man. We also have a spirituality where we want to surround ourselves around the other. So we will either be devoted to a child, a man, or an angel, a god, a goddess. We will always want to be in a state of love and devotion. And this is our spiritual direction. This is our spiritual path. And if we deviate from that, if we try to be something we are not, we will end up being very miserable. Now, this is not to say that we don't also have an inner masculine, because everybody has within them both the outer, whatever genitalia and biology you are given. This is one aspect of yourself. which is the predominant one. But then if you're a woman, you also have an inner man. If you are a man, you also have an inner woman. And in Tantra, we are playing with the union of opposites within ourselves and also with an external partner. So we're playing with that merging of opposites.
Beautifully, as you explained. So I would say what you have been saying, to sum it up a bit, is that for the women's path, awakening of her sensuality, her heart, love, devotion, intuition, and compassion, is that what her path is? That
Yes, that is the feminine path. And I didn't speak on the intuition yet, but that's also very important. And I give one example here. For example, in the embryo in the womb, if it is a female embryo, the centers of intuition will grow larger. If it's a male embryo, those centers will shrink, and centers of power and strength will grow larger. And so the girl automatically is born with a strong intuition. And one of the examples of that is her ability to do face reading. And that's probably given by nature, because we need to know what the baby is indicating when it's crying, when it needs something. We have to intuitively know, because baby can't speak. So we have to read the face and know, oh, maybe baby needs to poo, maybe baby needs the breast, maybe baby needs to sleep. And we are reading the face all the time. And then, of course, that translates into being able to read the faces of everybody. So we know if a politician is lying, full of shit, like many politicians in our world are, or we know if our man has been cheating. We see it in the face.
yes,
And the man is wondering, how did she know? Because he doesn't have that same ability of face reading like we do. So he can't understand, how did she know? I was hiding it so well. So we know a lot through our intuition, and we can develop that. And basically, a woman cannot be fully satisfied sexually unless we are also simultaneously opening our heart and opening our clairvoyance of the third eye. If we have all these centers open, we will feel deeply, deeply fulfilled in our sexuality and also in our spirituality.
correct. Thank you. Thank you. Your words are seeping inside me as I'm listening to it. I would like to ask next that, as our subject and on which we have specially invited you to throw some light, is discover the universe. And she has been, over the years and since ancient times, has been abused, has been burned, has been tortured, and so much has happened and has been shamed. How collectively this universe can heal, how collectively or individually this universe can heal? Please.
I
share
hear
something.
so much compassion in your voice when you're speaking about this, and I think it's super, super important. Of course, the number one thing that we need to address is, can we love and respect ourselves? That's the first thing, because the path is basically loving ourselves, and from there, loving another. And from loving another, we can expand into loving the whole. And so this recipe is very important for every woman, also for every man. But for every woman, it holds very special significance, because we need to, first of all, find out. It's like a journey of discovery, our inner universe, our inner universe. So, for example, if we want to go into self-pleasuring, we need to find out what is our way of experiencing pleasure in sexuality, not what somebody else has told us. And as an example, I'll use Freud, because Freud made an erroneous statement. He said, if a woman needs to have clitoral stimulation, she is infantile. And if she orgasms from penetration alone, then she is a mature woman. And then later on, Masters and Johnson did clinical research on many women, many men, and they were trying to discover if Freud said something that was true or false. And they found out it was absolutely false. Because in order for a woman to orgasm, there are three elements that come into play. One is the clitoris and clitoral network. Another is there's a nerve in the sacrum, which is giving the trigger for orgasm. And then the contractions of orgasm happen in the vagina. So these three elements are always involved, whether or not the woman is touching her clitoris. Still, the clitoris needs to be in full activation before she will have an orgasm. So however that happens, because every woman is a little different, and also the combination of this woman, this man might be different. So in different ways, the woman is stimulating her clitoris. And so it's very good to separate what has been told to you. Like millions of people have had their sex lives destroyed by that statement of Freud. I've had so many women, even today, who come to me and they say, "Oh, I can't orgasm." And then I ask them, "Oh, is that correct? Okay, so just tell me about it." They say, "Well, when my partner is penetrating me, I don't feel much." Then the next question I ask, "And how is it when you're self-pleasuring? Can you orgasm?" 99% of women say, "Oh yes, that's easy, that's no problem." So then, of course, the next question I ask is, "Okay, so you know how to orgasm when you're self-pleasuring. Why can't you bring that into your sexual union?" "Oh, but I couldn't say that to my partner because I should orgasm only from penetration." So many, many women carry this belief even today, even though it was disproved as a concept already in the 1950s. But till today, people are still believing it. Why? Because the psychiatric community continues to support what Freud said, even though it was scientifically proved wrong. And so we have to use our discernment and we have to use our own lived experience to know what is correct, what is incorrect, and to really question very heavily if we hear something, especially from a man who doesn't necessarily understand women's physiology, women's emotionality, women's way of being in a spiritual sense. We really have to question it, and we need to find our own answers. And that is really helped by gathering together as women and just talking and just sharing and finding out what is true for us. Like really gather, show each other your yonis, talk about masturbation, talk about everything to do with the feminine, about sex, about pregnancy, childbirth, raising children, all the things that are very important for the feminine. We need to talk about it with other women and really be very explicit. There's a wonderful book that I like a lot. It's called The New Height Report. And she questioned women. She said, what we've learned from men is not necessarily true for us around sexuality. So let's hear from the women. And she did a survey with women all over the English-speaking world to find out what is our own unique truth. And then she put it all in the book. And it's simply a survey. So she's not bringing her own ideas. She's just letting women speak. And this is really a revelation. And I highly recommend this book. It will be very inspiring for women, because women have been fed a lot of bullshit down the ages. And not only about our sexuality, but about our way of being. For example, women are taught that we're too emotional, we're too irrational. However, woman is meant to be that way. And I'd like to explain something about emotions in that context. That emotions are just like weather. We have weather patterns that happen in our environment, and that keeps a dynamic balance in our environment. Now, just imagine if weather never changed, it was always the same, the air would be so stagnated. So the emotions within us function just like weather. there's a change of weather, that keeps a dynamic balance in our own human energy system. And so women, being Shakti, representing movement, flux, flow, change, we are the ones that carry this weather potential, emotions. And we need to be very comfortable with our emotionality. And then we can help the men to also be comfortable with our emotionality, so that finally they can sit in their pure presence of Shiva, the center of the cyclone, and we can be the cyclone, and he's comfortable with that. That is the true sadhana, because the old sadhana said you have to renounce the world, which Osho used to say is basically renouncing women. You're renouncing the feminine, going to a cave in the Himalayas, escaping from the feminine. And the true sadhana is stay in the world, be with a woman, learn, evolve, and have the courage to grow in this situation of the dynamic balance of a woman in all of her flux, flow, and emotional being.
Amazing. So coming back a little bit, retouching on my question, Tantra has practices, many practices to heal on an individual level the women who have gone through any kind of sexual abuse or traumas as a child or a baby or growing up, and also for sexual conditioning, which is very deep. You know, it comes from the culture, religion, parents, education system. So can you throw some more light on it, that what Tantra has to offer as practices for these kind of issues?
So the first step is to love and accept ourselves as I've just described. You need to self-pleasure. You need to find out what is your truth. Once you are clear what is your truth, you can begin also throwing out what is not yours. And I'm going to go deeper into that in my presentation here in the festival. So when I do the workshop, then I will guide you through a process where you can release all those voices or entities that are not yours, that are sitting inside of your yoni, and to throw them out and reclaim who you truly are. So this is something we need to, a work that we need to do. And basically any kind of holistic healing process is going to be helpful for a woman to release all those negative energies. But I'd like to also touch on something that is a kind of activism. And this is something very dear to my heart, which I think is important to contemplate. If you think of India, in India, we have Shiva temples all over India, and these can be very elaborately decorated and constructed temples, but it could also be just a stone at the side of the road, you know, that's going to be venerated for whatever reason, or a tree or whatever. But the basic symbolism is the Shiva Linga. And as you know, the Shiva Linga is a conical shaped stone which sits inside of a sculpted yoni. Yoni meaning sacred place, representing the female genitals. Linga meaning pillar of light, representing the male genitals. So wherever you have a Shiva Linga, you will always have the yoni around it. And this is a very powerful indication that God is male, female energies combined, and that the lingam, the force of the lingam is not complete unless it is in a yoni, and vice versa. Now, in the Western world, we unfortunately don't have this symbolism. So what you have are these conical pillars in every city, and it's basically saying testosterone rules. Now, the qualities of testosterone, which is the principal male hormone, what is it? It's territorialness, goal-orientedness, competition. So if you have only this conical pillar, you are feeding only those qualities. That will lead to a very warlike society. it needs to be tempered, balanced with the yoni. So a kind of spiritual activism would be where anytime you see those kanko pillars, make a yoni around it in some way or other. It could be planting a circle of flowers around it. It could be putting some stones in the shape of the yoni. But in some way, we need to demand in our cultures everywhere that if there's any symbolism of lingam, there has to be a yoni with it. And likewise, if there's a symbolism of a yoni, there should be a lingam with it. It shouldn't be one or the other, it has to be both. Then we will have a true symbolic of a grounded and holistic spirituality in our cultures. And so this concept needs to spread into everything, also into the workplace. Like, why in the world should a woman be wearing a gray suit, working in a gray building, in a gray concrete box, behaving like a man? If we are going into a workplace, we have to bring the feminine qualities into that: love, compassion, nurturing. These qualities have to be blended with the masculine. And we have to start asserting that right. Another thing that's very important is that women are not being honored in our menstruation flow. And in ancient cultures, when it was time for the woman to menstruate, then the women of the village would all gather. They would go for 3 days. They would just be together contemplating on the feminine. Now in India, there is a time of isolation for women, but usually she's condemned that she's on her period, that it's something dirty. Of course, that's not true. She's just going into a more contemplative space, because when we go into the menstruation, the hormonal levels drop to almost nothing. So we need to rest, and that needs to be honored in every workplace, because in the West, for example, the woman on her menstruation is not honored at all. So she has to just take a pill so that she doesn't feel the pain and she can go on working like a man. But this is harmful and destructive. So in every workplace, there should be a special space. If a woman's on her period, she can go and has the right to lay down and relax at least for 2 hours. And hopefully there would be a bed of chi or a takyan cocoon or something that she can really rest and very deeply go into a meditative space and then come back to the work. And so these kinds of activism are very needed in the culture, and that we can start bringing all those feminine qualities into every aspect of life so that our world becomes balanced. And right now it's needed more than ever before, because the whole planet is threatened by an overdone, blown up form of masculinization in an unhealthy way. And that it can only become healthy when it's balanced by the feminine.
Beautiful, beautifully said. And when you mentioned about menstruation, for me, it had been also a very big learning. When as a child, I grew up feeling like it's dirty, it's not a very nice time. But it was when I was introduced to Tantra, I fully embraced, and I started worshiping myself during these days and started valuing and realized that how powerful these days are for a woman to recreate, to regenerate inside our own being and body.
Yes,
So,
and if you think of the Baul mystics who are
yeah.
also from India, and how beautifully they honor and celebrate the woman in her menstrual period. So this is a true tantric tradition where the woman is being literally worshipped as a goddess during her menstruation. And I think this attitude needs to spread more into the world.
True, true. Um, Sarita, could you mention few maybe Tantra enlightened female masters, if you know? Like we know a lot of male enlightened masters, but not many, feminine embodied.
Mhm. So I'm sure you must have heard of Lala.
Yeah.
She was a great enlightened mystic woman, very tantric. She lived naked. Her only covering was her long hair down to her knees. and she was a great mystic poet also. And then you have Mira. She was also very, very tantric. She was in love with Krishna, but she also had tantric experiences with embodied men. And she was one of the greatest enlightened poetess that the world has ever known. Her songs are still celebrated. And she is really revealing that path of mysticism for women. And one thing about the feminine spirituality is that the women don't really need to be made famous. It's like our love and our devotion is the way. We don't have to stand up and make a big deal about it. So there's a lot of women enlightened mystics who are not even known to the world. But if you start researching into male enlightened Tantra masters, you will find a woman either beside them or behind them. For example, Saraha, he was a great enlightened Tantra mystic. And he had received his transmission from a beautiful tantric woman, the Aerosmith woman. And Osho speaks about this in his book. So you've probably all heard of that book, or you might have read it. Such a very, very beautiful series of discourses on Saraha and his Tantra master, who was a woman. And then also Abhivana Gupta, he was a great Tantra master, and he was initiated by a male guru, but for his final initiation, the guru offered to Abhivana Gupta his own wife, and the wife of the guru initiated Abhivana Gupta into some of the more secret Tantra practices. And if you look at also Padmasambhava, who is known as the second Buddha in Tibet, he had a very beautiful woman consort who was the daughter of a king. And then the king got very angry when he found out, and then he went to try to kill Padmasambhava. But Padmasambhava, by some miracle, escaped from being killed. And then the king surrendered, offered his daughter, and then they went to Tibet. And one of the rulers in Tibet offered his own, I think it was either his wife or his daughter, I don't remember. So then Padmasambhava had two consorts, and they used to do Tantra practices together. And it's said that they became enlightened doing Tantra practice. So these are just some examples. And also, I'm just trying to remember, that was Tilopa. So Tilopa had several different gurus. One of his gurus was a woman, and that woman gave him the final transmission which helped him to become enlightened. She told him he has to go and become a bouncer in a brothel. So he went to become the bouncer in the brothel, and in that situation he realized the non-dual reality behind all apparent dualities, because there he was in the brothel practicing spirituality, meditation, and he became enlightened. And so this was a practice given to him by his mystic woman guru. So the list goes on and on. There's many Tantra mystic women, and we may not even know their names. We know the names of who they initiated and who they helped to become enlightened. So, for example, Atisha, his master was the goddess Tara. So she didn't appear to him physically, but she used to appear in dreams and offer him guidance. And so through her guidance, he went to Tibet and he established one of the most renowned schools of Tibetan Tantra. And that was all through being guided by the goddess Tara. So if we start investigating, we find out that women are all over the Tantra world, but not in fame and fortune, more as an undercurrent that's there continuously nurturing and feeding the Tantra path.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the list goes on, and the whole interview we can spend time in having researching on the names of these enlightened great masters. Um, would you like to throw a little bit more light on emotions when you were talking in, one of the questions? Because women seems to get really carried away a lot with her emotions, but to really keep a balance and be in the center also, and being in the little masculine is also very important. And as in the path of surrender and love, she often feels like hurt, which is also a part of growing into self-love. But during this time, we cannot understand the larger picture when we are feeling hurt and we are going through these emotions. So how to navigate also in these emotional traumatic journey, what feels like.
I'd like to bring that subject to Osho, because Osho is such an incredible master. He's been honoring women tremendously, and actually he's brought this balance of the masculine and the feminine into play in his whole approach to spirituality. And so he devised so many active methods of meditation that's really honoring the chaotic energy of the feminine and the need to express emotionally. For example, his dynamic meditation, Kundalini meditation, and all of his active meditations. And also he developed pillow beating meditation,
Gibberish.
Mystic rose meditation. All of these are honoring the feminine and the need to bring our emotions out and express them. But you will notice that in all of his meditations, there's also the Shiva energy very present, because we may express in these different ways, screaming, shouting, shaking, whatever it is. And then we come into a phase of sitting in silence or being in silence and just becoming a witness of body, mind, and emotions. So this is always the path, actually. This is the same path where you allow the full range of emotionality, and then you bring it into silence, and then you bring it into celebration. And this is fully honoring feminine and masculine elements. There's one meditation in particular that I love a lot, which is called the Becoming the Emotions meditation. And this is really, really good for women, of course for men also, but especially for women, that you have a mat on the floor, and then you can either lay down, sit up, or stand up, whatever you like, and you go into the full range of emotions. And you allow emotions to just move you moment to moment. So one moment you might be screaming, another moment laughing, another moment beating a pillow, another moment dancing, like you're just allowing the full range, another moment sobbing and crying. You continue like that for 20 minutes. Then after 20 minutes, you sit like a Buddha in meditation, and you simply become a witness of your body, mind, and emotions. And you sit for 20 minutes in silence. So it's a 40-minute practice. And this is just simply incredible, the benefits that will happen through this. And I really recommend women to try this. And also, especially if you're just coming up your menstrual period, this is the optimal time to do this practice. Yeah.
Yes, I have tried this meditation. It has huge benefits, and especially to be in the center during this emotional traumatic time, we need to realize that maybe this seems to be us, but this is not us also. This anger is not us. This jealousy, this possessiveness is not us. It's just a passing phase. It's just a passing wave. So to remain in the center still, it's not like we stopped reacting to the emotions after a time and just responding. So we need to transcend ourselves into from reaction to response. Yeah. Any message would you like to give to the women who are coming to the festival or otherwise in the world? You have so many amazing trainings going on. Let me tell you, who may not know, she's teaching like probably 365 days in a year all around the world. And I'm always amazed on her energy, that Sarita, where do you get so much energy from, to fly from one retreat to another? And she has several trainings going on, from soulmate training to master lover to women's
Mm,
training, online, offline.
mm.
So what's the secret also of your energy, and what's the message to everyone?
The secret of my energy is gratitude, because I sat in Osho's presence for so many years and received so much grace from him, so much love, so much transformation. And that has become basically a bottomless well. And from that bottomless well come eternal waters of gratitude and love. And I just feel like sharing that. So that became a river, it became the sea, spreading all over the world. And I sincerely would like to see every human being evolving into our fullest potential. And that fullest potential is enlightenment. So I would like to see enlightened women and men filling this world. And therefore, I've devised so many different courses to approach truths from many different angles. Like whatever people feel a longing or craving for, there's going to be an answer to that, and that answer comes through your own lived experience. So therefore, if we have one course like Sacred Sexuality, we'll work with all the 7-year cycles within us that we've gone through as we developed into adults. And the Master Lover course works with developing the great potential of our sexuality, finding out that sexuality is actually an art form and we can learn it, and how best to approach the masculine, the feminine. And then I have the Tantra soulmate training, 7 levels for couples. It takes 3.5 years to complete the training, and 500 hours of practice in meditations together in the bedroom. So this is amazing that you evolve on the spiritual path with your lover. And then also, of course, the Goddess Essence series of courses, and that's already coming online. So the part 1 is already online, you can get it. And I also have a Goddess Essence teacher training. I have the Sex to Super Consciousness series, working with the 7 chakras and evolving our full potential through that. And that also is addressed in the Tantra teacher training. So people can learn to become Tantra teachers, which you know because you've gone through that training. And yeah, the list goes on. We also have the Tantra Mystic Massage training, learning how to become a professional Tantra masseuse, and doing some like busting of myths around Tantra massage. What is it and what is it really? So many different subjects, so many different dimensions to explore within the world of Tantra. And of course, last but not least is the Tantra Essence Festival. And this is a yearly offering where we get together also with musicians, with practitioners of yoga, renowned Tantra teachers from around the world. And this is just a sublime celebration of all things Tantric. And
And
I'd like to just say something about my approach to Tantra, because Tantra has a bad reputation, let's face it, that a lot of people think it's all about sexual licentiousness. Actually, it's a path to self-realization and enlightenment. And I like to offer it in that way. And as far as I know, authentic Tantra will always be based in meditation. So if it's based in meditation, then it is authentic Tantra. If it doesn't have any meditation in it, it's not Tantra, it's something else.
thank you for throwing so much light. And we are very proud to have 2 of Sarita's courses, online courses, together with Evolvebeings, which we would be launching soon. The Tantra Goddess Essence Teacher Training course and the Master Lover. So you can also find these courses with Evolvebeings online in a month's time or so. And
Exciting!
so exciting. And don't miss her on 1st of May in Wonder Woman Festival 2020 online. She would be there with all her charm and wisdom to share with all of us on Zoom live session. We would be sharing the link with you soon. 1st of May, 3:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is 12 noon for you in Europe, or please find out your time according to your time zone. And thank you so much, Sarita, for joining us and for your grace.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for listening us and watching us and to be with us. I wish
It's
you all
a
the
great
best.
pleasure.
I wish you all the best in your journey in life. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.